For the Pledge of Allegiance. All right, it's the Gateway Board of School Directors Study Session, Tuesday, October 11. Do I hear a roll call, please, Ms. Isha?
Mr. Boba.
Here.
Mrs. Cerrucci.
Here.
Mrs. Delaney.
Here.
Mrs. McBride.
Here.
Ms. Mungo.
Here.
Mr. Ritter.
Here.
Dr. Singh.
Here.
Mrs. Warning.
Here.
Thank you, ma'am. We just had an executive session to discuss personnel matters, and we are now going to move on to comments from residents on agenda items. Do we have any such folks? Nope. Okay, we're going to move on to board member discussion items. This is a little free-for-all thing where board members get to talk about whatever might be on their mind, and no obligations, but if you got something that you want to bring up now, now's the time. Dr. Singh, you want to start with what was so funny earlier today?
It was so funny, I forgot.
Very good. Thank you, sir. Mr. Ritter.
So Jack, we've been talking for a good long while now about finding a way to get a media coordinator, an outreach director, a communications director, someone that knows how to collect and understand and route and question and survey and all that kind of stuff. That it would be easier for that person to handle than for all of us or the superintendent or other folks to do. So I'm going to try to put together a list of about, 10, 20, 30 things that are on my mind that would go into the ingredient list for defining this, and then what we could do is incrementally either cut, modify, or add to this list until we come up with a really nice description, see whether it's worth getting somebody to come in and interview for that position so that we have an official communications director for the district. So that's my proposition. I know the board and I, members of the board and I have been talking about this for a good long while, so we're going to put some feet to it and actually put some pen to the paper and come up with a good description. Does that sound good?
Well, it's an interesting discussion, and this is a discussion place. So just a little history, and some of you remember far better than I. Gateway had a person that one would describe as the communications director, correct?
Yes.
For roughly how long?
5 years.
5 years. So I was not on the board then. I just remember as a community member wondering how and why a school district would need a communications director and what that person did when they weren't addressing the media. So maybe someone has a better sense of that, what happened with that and why did that position end, which has now been a few years ago too, right?
Financial cutbacks is why we merged the position with this assistant secretary to Dr. Nina Zetti. That was Kara Zanella, and she did a dual role. And the position really got cut over finances, and I'm always the one on the board that says, where's the money going to come from? Where's the money going to come from? Where's the money going to come from? And we always joke every time we have a busing issue. It's kind of become a joke that I always say, well, if we cut busing, we'll have, $3 to $5 million. So every time there's a busing problem, I say, it's cut busing. So if we cut busing, we could really hire a lot of people because we'd have like $5 million, right, to spend on staffing. So if we could get the community on board with carpooling and other transportation methods, we'd have a lot of money.
And
You're scratching in the right direction here. In other words, if we hire a person, they're supposed to bring more to the table than not. Okay, so we have other schools that are getting some of our students, and it would be good for us to reach out to them and say, hey, why don't you consider coming to Gateway or coming back to Gateway, or people from other states who are thinking about moving somewhere. If we had a communications director that could say, hey, what about Monroeville, Pitcairn School District? This is what we do. This is who we are. This is who our leadership is. With the, to call those people, to go out, to work with them, to bring them on board, then we would have more students in the school district, and that would mean more money.
Doesn't really mean more money unless they move into the district.
Yeah, they don't.
And they're new taxpayers. It doesn't.
Pay an entry fee to
We
get
don't.
in.
So the problem with Gateway is we really don't have a way to increase our revenue, and we can't. It's not like bringing on a salesperson who's going to make commissions, and the problem that we're facing,
The one exception, of course, is that grant writer person, which gets bandied about occasionally.
Somebody-
And in some
yes.
districts is on the payroll and basically justifies their existence by bringing in grants. But that seems like such a great idea. I rarely see it.
the general problem that we're having and everybody's having is that we have staff shortages, we have positions that we can't fill or that are taking too long to fill. And when that happens, we're at a disadvantage because it usually means that the person needs more money or we have to raise the rates. When you don't have enough paraprofessionals, or you don't have enough school police, or you don't have enough nurses, or you don't have enough food service, what do? You raise their pay. But the problem is we have a finite amount of money to spend out of our budget and we can't borrow from our fund balance to pay employee salaries. And then the other alternative is to raise taxes on the community. So this is kind of an important discussion that everybody needs to be aware of, and
Almost everybody, but not everybody. Because right now, we're having a school board, it's called a school board study session. The public is supposed to be able to see what's going on. Right now, on my TV at home, we're broadcasting what are called color bars. That's it.
I know, John, but we do have other ways for people to view the messages. They're on our website, they're on YouTube.
Does not go to the website because she's not on the internet. And there are
Well, I
other
think the
people as well.
reason goes back to why we're not broadcasting on cable TV is because we don't have the manpower to do that.
is
It's
why
not that
Brady was
nobody
up.
wants to be on cable TV, it's that it takes more employees and more money and a lack of staff to do that.
Well said. So this is why we bring it up. So you can see that we've got different angles to pursue on this. So would everybody be okay if I scratch together 2 or 3 pages of specifications and then we can sort of chew on them and come up with either rejecting them all or modifying some of them or adding to it and put it out there and see what happens? Grant writer's a good addition to this. I would like this person to be able to do grant writing as well. I didn't think of that.
While we're conjuring this up, we can think of those things. I would like to get back to Mr. Rucci's point about buses for one quick moment, if I could. We can't, the law does not allow us to get rid of buses, and, I know, well, there is a very useful part of this discussion, which is, if most people, if you see our buses in the community, you almost always see a great big bus with a handful of kids at most on it. And it seems wasteful to have such a great big bus for a relatively small amount of kids, but if I'm not mistaken, the law sort of dictates that too. We have to have capacity for essentially the maximum amount of kids who could show up that day, even though day after day after day they don't. So we've talked before about reaching out to the state about having some input into changing those laws so that we could be more efficient with the buses themselves, which perhaps could save us some money in the long run.
I can't see the legislature getting involved until we're at a crisis point in the state where there's just not enough bus drivers and school districts are just having
we
bus
had-
drivers not show up. And we're getting close to that
I
point.
mean, there were schools in our area that last year had to tell the parents, we can't take your kid to school, this week, this day, because we don't have bus
Maybe the legislature will
drivers.
get together on some type of issue at some point when there's a crisis big enough for them to act.
And that told me somebody put out a survey to see who's gonna ride the bus and were able to base it off that. I think it was another state though.
We were trying to throw around some ideas legally of what we could do to opt out of busing, remember, Bruce? And we determined that we really couldn't do
You really
it.
can't.
I mean,
And I know
I'm glad it was-
Bonnie's on the call, and Bonnie, we have conversations about this almost weekly. How many schools do we transport to based on that 10-mile radius?
And we're about at 65 schools right now.
Think about that for a moment.
Yeah,
You can
you
only
don't
have
see that.
one student on a bus, possible.
right, and that's one thing that I know Mr. Ritter was talking about, bringing to the legislature's attention. So what the law says is as the farthest point from the distance, so it's not from the school. So if you take our borders and say our farthest border is by Wilkins Township, and then you calculate from that point 10 miles as the crow flies, if I'm understanding correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, Bonnie.
Line.
That's how far we have to provide free transportation to students who choose alternative schools. And it would be a huge savings for us if the legislature reduced that radius to maybe 5.
10 to 5, right?
It would help.
5 miles would be good.
Is that air miles?
No, it's not air miles, it's the nearest highway,
The nearest highway, okay. It's not as,
major highway, yeah.
nearest major highway.
Yeah, it doesn't count if you cross the district. It only counts when you leave the boundary.
that's still.
So that's something else we can raise our voices toward, getting some change to that. Obviously, if we could cut down the amount of kids going to other schools, that would be useful on multiple levels, and we talk about that year after year a little bit. So perhaps that'll be something we approach a bit more aggressively before the next school year. Mr. Ritter, have you
Very good.
completed your thoughts?
Thanks, Jack.
Anyone else?
Yes, I just have a question if maybe we could look into this or administration can. Ramsey traffic at pickup time at the end of the day. Before, parents used to be able to park in the playground area per se, not in the playground, but around that area, and they were able to go pick their kids up. Now they have it that the parents drive in and pick up their kids with their numbers on. Traffic is going down Ramsey Road, is that Ramsey Road? Almost to the intersection. And it's causing a big backup. So in case there's an emergency, it's going to be tough for people to get through.
Nobody's riding the bus.
On our buses.
See, there you go.
We have room on our buses.
So someone will take a look at
I'm just-
that
We will
again.
respond to that.
Okay, thank you very much.
Anybody else?
Yeah.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
had a parent resident speak to me the other day and ask, well, this was one who was concerned about the monies being spent on turf and all of this. But the reason I found out when he was asking that was because he said, well, he has kids still in the district and some who've already graduated. But his concern was they used to have like a Gettysburg trip every year.
I remember going to Gettysburg.
And he said the reason they stopped it, it was because they said they didn't have the funds. So he's saying, well, how do we have funds for some things and not others? So I just told him I'd bring up that issue about the Gettysburg, and maybe someone can figure out why it
A number of those field trips are funded by the PTOs and the PTAs.
really.
And, I just responded to an email today, or yesterday, to Ramsey about 4 or 5 different field trips that they plan on taking in transportation. But they are self-funded by the PTOs.
And you think the Gettysburg one was? I don't know if it was a grant or.
Long time since that was,
That's not long. That's when we went to Gettysburg, like right before.
it's been a few years, I mean.
Yeah, and they stopped because they said there was
Yeah.
no funds. Okay.
Well, I guess we'll try to find out a little more about that, too.
Right.
It was the 8th grade that did that for social studies.
typically middle school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we had to stay up late waiting for them to come back.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, before we get to bills and financial reports, Dr. Stewart, you had someone you wanted to
Yes,
introduce?
I have Mr. Eric Lassick, choral director, Gateway High School.
May I interrupt? I'm so sorry. I thought that we would have the opportunity to respond to the discussion items that you all brought up.
At the, item 12 is comments from residents, but you could,
Non-agenda.
yeah, we don't, and we actually communicated about this, Rabbi, and again, no one here wants to limit anything, so if you want to do it now,
Either way, I'm sorry to interrupt. I
but
just
you know
wanted
what,
to
there might be
what that was.
there might be more during the meeting, and then when you get your turn at the mic, you
I
might,
look forward to it.
you want?
Thank you.
Me too, all right.
Sorry.
Oh, no problem.
Please.
We're gonna change that on the agenda, the way it looks. I like that.
How's everybody doing today?
Great.
Good. You'll see in the personnel items where there's listed some musical supplementals, the possibility of the additions of those. I just wanted to give a little bit of history about that so that you know where we're coming from. The idea might be like we've been doing the musicals for years. How are we asking for these positions now? I arrived in the district in 2001, and from then on, we've never had actual supplementals for the high school musical. So the student activity account that pays for the costumes and pays for the rights to do the musical and pays for the construction of the set and everything, all of that money, also, that account also has paid for the salaries in the past. So the payment for the director, the payment for the producer, the payment for the set construction, all those sort of things have been paid out of the student activity account.
Let me interrupt one quick second. For those who aren't familiar with supplementals, it's actually money paid for efforts outside the
Outside
normal
of the
scope.
school day, yes.
So supplemental refers
Yes.
to
Yes.
payments or compensation. So,
Yes, thank you.
Just want to be clear about that. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
So what I did was I took a poll of, I found 12 districts from the area to see what they currently pay as far as supplementals for their musical. And I found a really wide range. Some schools paid a total of $2,500 for all of their supplementals. Some schools paid $32,000 for the amount of their supplementals. The average spent was $15,801.18. So what I tried to do was take the budgets that we've had from the years past, see what positions made from our own student activity budgets, compared them to these other school districts, and that's where the dollar amounts that you see in the personnel agenda come from. So it's not just something I picked out of the air. I've done a little bit of research to see what other school districts do. I've also shared with Dr. Short the job descriptions of each of those things that he can share with you at some point along the way as well. Just so that you know what each of those responsibilities are. And I think a couple reasons why I think it's important that we do that. I think it helps provide equity for our students. In years past, the students had either had to write a check for a significant amount of money, a couple $100s to do the musical, or they had to sell hundreds and hundreds of dollars worth of advertisements for the program in order to be a part of it. I'm hoping that if we were to take this part out of the student activity account, our budget would be less, and there would be less of an ask for the kids that want to be a part of it, so that if finances were a problem for them, being in the musical they wouldn't be precluded from being in the musical due to the finances. So I think it's an equity issue. I also think it's good that the district will have some oversight on who gets paid what, because in years past, that has varied from year to year depending on how much money has come in, depending on how much money has gone out. And I think it'll be good for the district to have that here and know exactly every year how much money would be coming out for those salaries. This $17,000, which is what the total is, $17,000 out of our student activity account will mean $17,000 more that we can spend towards the show. A show from one year to the next can be anywhere from $40,000 to $60,000 to try and do. We usually have to write a check for $5,000 to $6,000 just for the right to do it. So in order to legally have the right to do it and have them send you the scripts, that's usually a check for between $5,000 and $6,000. And we haven't built we haven't put a costume together. We haven't screwed a 2x4 together. We haven't done any of that other sort of thing. So it is a pretty expensive business.
Step in the process.
Yeah. Let me just go down my list here.
Can I ask how the student
Sure.
activity account is funded? Are we putting any in that, or is it fully funded by
Currently,
you?
it is, since I've been here, has been fully funded from ticket sales for the musical and from the program ad revenue.
Yeah,
And occasionally, I think last year there were a few schools that borrowed some costumes and we made some money that way, borrowed a few set pieces and we made a couple $100 that way. But the main two revenue drivers for the musical are ticket sales and ad revenue for the program.
ad revenue has been pretty substantial over the years. Now, we
Yes.
hit that 3-year COVID period, but
Do you plan to continue the ad book?
We plan to continue the ad book. The way that I would kind of like to see it move forward is that we have all of that on a spreadsheet now. So as opposed to telling a kid, you have to sell X amount, we can simply send out to the people that we that bought ads last year and say, are you still interested in it for this year? So the ad revenue would continue. The thing that would change would be there wouldn't be as strict of a requirement for each kid to sell X dollar amount of ads or write a check.
I'm just brainstorming. I'm comparing this to, my kids are on the hockey team, which is, again, is a club sport. It's an $80,000 operating budget. Gateway gives $5,000. We're fully funded. It's tuition, it's selling ads, it's the same thing. It's selling candy, it's selling candles, all that stuff. I'm not opposed to kids having a little bit of stake in the activities that they want to do, but I don't like to see kids not be able to participate at all. So sometimes we have, in the past, had some type of scholarship programs too. Instead of just coming in and saying, I'm going to get some people mad at me, Gateway just give us $17,000, because we're having this discussion before you were sitting in the room about how we're being pulled in every direction about everybody who wants more money.
Yep.
Is, having a way to make sure that nobody doesn't get to participate over money, but not necessarily just handing you a check for $17,000 so that it's easier, because we're all, I think, challenged right now financially, all of us. Just a thought.
I think the other point, as you were talking before about students, trying to keep students here, and especially since we have a performing arts school very close by that students go to, this puts us at a more of a competitive balance with a place like Westinghouse, in that those kids that go there aren't paying anything, and we're paying on top to send them there. So that puts us, I think it gives us a little more of a competitive balance with what other districts are doing around us. This was, when I got here in '01, it was the only district that I had taught at 3 places before I came here, and it was the only place that didn't have supplementals towards the musical. And so I just thought, we're looking at, changing staffing and moving some things around, that this might be the time to bring that up.
Who do we get to be right now and in years past, the painter and the set designers and, I understand the director and the, vocal director and stuff, but weren't the kids doing stage crew and?
They do, but we've had people that we've had adults in charge that did that stuff.
Parents that volunteered?
Well, there were some parents that volunteered, but there was a person that was paid to be the set designer out of the student activity account, and there was a person that was paid to be the painter that was in charge of all that stuff. Now, there are students that help, there are parents that come and help, but you have to have somebody with the real know-how and knowledge and the vision to design everything before the building stuff starts.
Has this been a barrier previously with the musicals?
As far as like student participation?
Well, and getting.
We've had a set design person, and we've had a painter the past number of years. It's just that we've paid them out of the student activity account. So my thought, I would assume that, I don't know exactly how contractually it all works, but if all of that were approved, it would have to go out to the union to say, is anyone interested in doing this? And if there are, people could apply, and if not, then, you look at finding other people out in the community or surrounding areas that would be interested in doing it.
So people would have to have qualifications to do this, like
Yes.
a set designer.
Yes.
I don't know what the union rules for that would be.
I'm going to say, with all our supplementals, when you see the time that the individuals put in, they're making pennies on a dollar with everything. And, you made the comment about students not participating because, of writing a check. Have we not let students participate? Because I know,
Well, I don't think it's so much a matter of not letting students participate, but our number of students that are simply involved in the show, or the number of kids that have tried out. 10-ish years ago, we were at 60, 65 kids in a cast, and right now we're around 30. Now, you could probably say a lot of that might be COVID-related, but I think some of it is also economically related, because when we're asking a kid to do this, if they happen to work, we're also asking them to take off basically 2 months' worth of time where they're not going to have a chance to work either. So those numbers have dropped. So it hasn't been a matter of you want to be in the musical and then you didn't sell it and we said no, but it has been a matter of just the numbers have gone down. It's a great question.
Economical conditions and also time, the amount of time that's given to this musical, not only the musical, but in the past, fall plays. A lot of dedication.
Yeah, no, I was looking at the breakdown that you had sent us on the
Yeah.
board docs, was a lot more extensive, but I wasn't aware that students had to pay to even be involved, to be in the production. Is that what you're saying?
So once they try out and they make it, so it's not like you have to do this before you try out. So if you try out,
Even after
you
you-
get in, then it is, here are the things you need to do. Now, have there been times in the past where a kid hasn't sold enough ads or hasn't paid their money completely? There has. We haven't done anything, but then that affects the bottom line. And if we can take part of that out of, if we can take part of these salaries out of that bottom line, then it's not going to be, we're not going to have to worry about running on a deficit from one year to the next, or we can only pick a show that's going to sell 4 bajillion tickets because we can pick shows that are going to be more geared towards the talent that we have as opposed to the amount of tickets that we can sell. It would be like saying that we're only going to run a spread offense, even if we don't have the people to run our spread offense, because spread offense sells more tickets on a Friday night. We wouldn't say that. So it's sort of the same idea here, where we're going to be able to pick a show that features the best of the talent that we happen to have that year.
Yeah, because I was going to say, that seemed like it would be eliminating certain talent, because if many parents are the ones who take over that responsibility.
Sure.
And you have parents who cannot do that, and therefore, there are some talented individuals who are not going to be it still might be burdensome on some very talented students.
Everything is burdensome. Baseball's burdensome, football's burdensome. You have kids with booster clubs.
Well, and I agree.
Football boosters has to sell raffle tickets, candy. Baseball boosters, basketball boosters, cheer has to raise money for their outfits. They buy like 2 or 3 cheer outfits. So I'm very willing to help the music department, but I also want every kid in there to have a stake in their performance and their production.
I think your concern is valid, and I think from my perspective, I'm just trying to get the musical on that equal footing with the football team. Like the ticket sales, at least as far as I know, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but like for the soccer coach doesn't get paid out of the tickets for tonight's game, right? The district pays for that part of it. So all that I'm asking for through this is to put us on equal footing, not a higher footing than those sports that already have supplementals paid for through the district. So I don't want to I'm not asking for beyond that, I'm just asking for that same
Understood.
level
Can I
of.
ask Mr. Zarellis, I'm not going to put you on the spot, for next week or in an email, could you come back to us and look at the budget and see if we did it this year, would it have to come out of fund balance?
Right.
Or is there a place where an amount that you would be comfortable with as a regular budgetary line item, a number that you would suggest? And if it isn't the 17,
Yeah.
an alternate number that we could, as an option, do what I said, is just give a set amount per year to the student activity account.
Right.
And then on good years, maybe that number annually goes up, maybe it goes down instead of a supplemental. I'm not saying I wouldn't vote yes on it, but I'm saying I would like more information from the business manager, the budget, and maybe an alternate
I'll be
option.
honest with you. It would probably be easier if we brought everything into the general account anyway, because they use the school district credit card to buy everything, and then they're always cutting checks giving it us. If we brought everything into the general fund, we would have better control of it.
Right,
If the
but we
school's
need to
truly going to pay these out of payroll, just like football coach or whatever, then we would have a better idea of what's going on.
And can you get us how much we pay all of our coaches, how many football coaches and
Yeah.
how many soccer
Yeah,
coaches?
we have the supplementals. We have supplementals.
Yeah,
covered,
the
yes.
list.
And ticket sales and ad sales would also, be reflected.
Right, because
What is your
we do the
average
deposits here anyway.
It can range anywhere from 40 to 60 grand, depending on the year, depending on what needs built, depending on,
And Disney
sound
costs more
requirements.
money to buy those those.
yeah, depending on the popularity of a show, that can have an effect on what the royalty fee is. My only concern with doing it in the way that you talked about is it's harder to find. I think it might be a little bit easier to find people that might be interested if there's a solid
Number.
dollar amount ahead of time, as opposed to saying, because my big concern when we first started thinking about all this and how we're going to do this for this year and make it work, I didn't know how we could go out and look for people to do it if we couldn't say necessarily, come and direct the musical and you'll make X amount of dollars.
Understood.
I think that was the thought process that I had when we first started working on it.
Now, along the same lines as Mary Beth, what you were talking about, and this is too simple-minded, but I'll do it anyway, and it doesn't relate specifically to this, but we have a new business manager now. So I know right now you're shorthanded without an assistant, but
Right.
this might be a good time to try to find a way for us to spend a little less money. Not on this,
I get you.
anywhere.
Right.
Anywhere.
agree.
Can we save money on copiers? Can we save money on professional services?
Buses.
Can we save money anywhere that can be directed back to the students?
Right.
So I know we do that on a daily basis, on a regular basis, but I also know people fall into habits.
Right.
People fall into
I agree.
patterns.
Yeah.
And
no,
so,
I have a lot of good ideas.
so there you go. So let's try to find a way to keep some of the money here in the district that then we can use for actual student activities.
Right.
But allow them or understand that they still need to have a vested interest in what we're doing. So, you don't need to start on that this minute. You can wait till this meeting's over, probably. If you can't multitask. But yeah, I think we really ought to give that a serious effort.
By the way, the musicals are phenomenal.
They are indeed.
They're always great, yeah. They're always great. It's a real tradition that we have here, and I want to do my best to try and keep that rolling through at least my next 6 years.
And the district really made the commitment to school boards earlier whenever we went about the renovation 20 years ago, to have a top-notch facility for our performing arts students. And we still have it, and it's been tremendous. Thank you, Eric.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you for what you do, Mr. Lewis.
Yeah,
Out of
appreciate it.
curiosity too, because I know when I go to most of the musicals in the area or even other areas, because I just love musicals, those program books that they have, I mean, they're like a novel. And I notice even some of ours aren't nearly as large as Penn Hills and some other. Now, how much of the cost of the musical is defrayed by those?
Well, it all depends. That's one of the things that I'd like to look at trying to save some money on is how we print and the cost of our printing. I think last year we were somewhere around $15,000 in ads that we brought in total, but the cost of the cost to print in that style of book, like that glossy finish that's a book that you would get if you went to the Benedum. It's very comparable. And so I think it ended up costing like $5,000 to print. So, you're eating up a lot of your profit there. And so if there's a way, and Dr. Short and I talked about maybe some alternatives in finding less expensive ways to get that printed so that our bottom line, again, where we have a higher profit margin in what we're bringing in.
Would that be one of those things we can partner with Forbes?
That's
I'd mentioned that.
That's exactly, that's exactly what we talked about, that's, might be a possibility for us.
The beautiful printing stuff that you.
Yeah. And that would definitely be something we would be interested in.
Yeah, well, while still trying to maintain a quality,
Oh, yeah, that's right. We don't want to diminish the
Yes.
quality. I look at those booklets.
Yes.
Look at the tremendous ads of the community. Yeah, it's
They have
amazing.
beautiful machines in your
they do.
machines.
They've really updated and
Yeah.
improved the program.
So you are also looking for ways, not just
They're sold.
coming to the board and
Absolutely.
asking for this supplemental.
Absolutely.
You're looking at ways to try
Yes.
to cut what you
Absolutely.
have, okay.
And I think we have some ways to, right now, in the past, we've always done 2 weekends and 6 shows. I think one of the ways that we can save some money is to go to 1 weekend and 4, especially with the number of, with 30 kids in the show, we're not selling 6,000 tickets. It's just, our auditorium seats 1,000 people. And when you get royalties, you pay per show. So doing less shows, doing them in 1 weekend, the sound rental equipment that we have to rent will be less, any lighting equipment we have to rent. I think last year we didn't have to rent any lights, but all the sound equipment we have to rent, all those wireless microphones and stuff. That should be a little bit less if you're doing it 1 weekend instead of 2. So we definitely have some thoughts about how we can save some money as well.
Question, we are having a musical this year, correct?
Well, that's what I'm working for. I feel that as department chair for music, I at least want to get us to a point where I feel like we are headed in that direction.
Did he
So-
say yes? Is that what?
He's
Didn't
working.
really say that, John. He said he's working on it.
We're working on it.
It's an excellent non-answer.
That's good. Pretty good.
Well done. Anything else,
Show
sir?
must go on.
Yeah.
Any other questions that you have for me otherwise?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thanks so
Thank
much.
you
If you
for
have any
everything.
questions during the week, feel free to email me. I'd be happy to talk with any of you about concerns or if something else comes up along the way. Okay?
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, appreciate it. Yep.
All right, ready to get on to Section B, bills and financial reports.
Thank you, Mr. Bova. Section B, financial reports. Resolved that the Gateway Board of School Directors approves Sections B1, list of bills, as listed in Section B at the Tuesday, October 18th, 2022 regular board meeting. Item 1, financial reports. Section B1, list of bills, October 2022. Note, this is the total amount of accounts payable being paid to various vendors for each individual fund as listed for the month of October 2022.
Go ahead. Moving right along to Section C, items previously tabled. We had one item tabled from last month's meeting. Contract for the esports. Approve the addition of the esports supplemental at the rate of $1,118 per year. We've made an adjustment with that. So Val, do we want to untable?
Yes, I'd like to untable that, please. Make a motion to untable.
Second.
That motion was made to untable by Ms. Warning, seconded by Mrs. Cerrucci, sorry.
And then we can just,
Yep, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and then we can just include the addition in the personnel agenda.
Okay.
Is there a roll call vote?
Roll
Oh,
call.
yeah, we do. Yep.
Mrs. Cerrucci?
Aye.
Mrs. Delaney?
Aye.
Mrs. McBride?
Aye.
Ms. Mungo? Aye. Mr. Ritter?
Aye.
Dr. Singh?
Aye.
Mrs. Warning?
Aye.
And Mr. Bova?
Aye.
Motion carries to remove from the table.
Okay, moving right along to Section D, personnel agenda. Mike Zarellis, in for Mrs.
Yes.
Crump.
Resolved that the Gateway Board of School Directors accept and approve the personal agenda, items 1 through 5 as listed in Section D for the regular board meeting as of Tuesday, October 18th, 2022. Number 1, resignations. Accept and approve the resignations as listed. Item 2, leaves of absence. Approve the request for a leave of absence as listed. Item 3, employment. Approve the employment of the following individuals for the positions indicated. All employment is contingent upon a receipt and review of all necessary employment information. Item 4, supplementals. Approve the issuance of the following supplemental contract to the following individuals for the 22-23 school year as listed. Approve the addition of the following proposed supplementals at the rates specified. Item 5, volunteers. Approve and authorize the following individuals for the volunteer positions as indicated. Employment as a volunteer is contingent upon receipt and review of all necessary documents.
Questions, comments?
Yeah, so we have the esports at 1450, and we also have the esports listed previously on the other page. So which is the correct
We noted that this was removed from the agenda and it could be reflected in the new payment. Very good. Additional 352, yes.
I just want to say that we did esports today. They won again. It's great. I'm just overseeing this, and I don't have a clue what they're doing. I don't. These kids are so excited, and they're screaming and yelling, and, I mean, we have a fantastic room that they're playing in, and I don't mind doing it, but our student advisor said, Mrs. Warning, it's not that we don't want you, but. So I was telling Micah, he was laughing, but that's, but it's good. These kids are really into this, and so hopefully somebody will jump on this now with the increase. Also, I'm looking at the employment A. We have an effective date of October 17th. Our meeting is until the 18th. Will they start before our meeting, or will they start, or is that a typo?
They're going to start Monday, October 17th.
But our meeting's the 18th to approve it?
I think, are you asking if it needs to be an action item?
Should it be an action item? Do you want this to be an action item?
Who are you asking, Val?
I was asking Bonnie because she was saying they were starting Monday.
I couldn't hear the voice.
Yeah, that would be a good idea, but person is going to be starting on Monday, the 17th, for sure. That would be a good idea.
I think, Val, your point is, I think you should make it an action item.
Okay. I would like to make this an action item, so the dates are correct.
So you can start on the 17th and it's approved tonight.
I'll second that.
The motion is made by Ms. Warning, seconded by Ms. Cerrucci.
Is that for A only?
Yes.
Yes.
A only.
What about Jose? Do you need?
Well, let's address A first.
Are they using the wireless or the wired?
We got to get people back in this room.
Yeah. Yeah, why are they not here?
I don't know. We'll address that too. So we're talking about A only. B starts on the 31st.
Okay.
So any other questions on this?
This is for the transportation and facilities,
Right.
right? Okay.
Let's just do all in favor. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, Ms. Isha.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions under employment?
What do the independent volunteers do? Are they just helping classrooms with the kids?
Correct. Assistance, personal assistance,
Parties and whatever, conferences and stuff.
whatever needs done.
Did you want to do something with,
Yeah, I was asking, is there a necessity to start Jose Gonzalez as our new school police officer before October 31st? Do we need to make that an action item as well? There's no date on the PASBO training.
There's no date on what?
Or his NASTRO.
Oh, his training, gotcha.
NASTRO training, just be.
You know, that's a good point. If we could bring him in like instantly, why not go ahead and do that? Why wait for no reason?
And I believe there might be an issue on his end
That's what I was gonna ask.
Yes.
when he,
Notice or something?
yes,
Prior employment.
I mean, if you need us to,
Yeah,
I'm just asking.
yeah. And that was a personal issue that, you know, he can't start until that date.
So he stays on
Yeah.
next Tuesday.
All right.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Ritter, also for your diving
We
coach.
have to actually go.
We have Section E, conferences, action items. Dr. Chaky or Dr. Rossi?
Put it as an action item.
In Section E, we have some conferences here listed as an action item. We have 3 separate conferences for individuals as listed.
This is an action item, so
Will we have a date for Jose to go for making this an action item?
No, we're not making it.
Yeah, we're not, he just said
Oh.
he can't start for 2 weeks.
Something on his end.
Oh, wait a minute. That first one's October 14th.
Today's the 11th.
Right.
So we have to make the first one an action item?
this is an action
The
item.
entire agenda is an action agenda.
It says action items.
Sorry. It's not caffeine
I know,
today.
it's all right.
All right,
So
so,
question and comments on the conferences for action items.
No,
Motion to approve.
yeah, do we have a motion to approve that?
so moved.
Mrs. Cerrucci, second by Ms. McBride. Any more questions? No, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, thank you. Hey, we need to back up for a moment. We made something an action item, and we all agreed to do that, but then we forgot to vote on the thing we made an action item.
All right, so motion to approve employment of Virginia Simon as Transportation Facilities Secretary and Administration effective October 17th at the rate of 2272 per hour. Somebody second that, please?
Second.
So that motion made by Mrs. Cerrucci, seconded by Ms. McBride. Again, any questions? No, we already talked about it. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you, Ms. Cerrucci, for pointing that out.
Section F, administrative report, items for discussion, elementary education, Dr. Rossi.
Thank you, Dr. Short. Item number 1, approve the pilot Bean Stack reading software, purchase of software contingent upon the successful completion of the pilot program, and that will be replacing reading counts.
Business manager.
Item number 2, approval of the sponsor-to-sponsor agreement with the YMCA of Greater Pittsburgh. Approve the agreement with the YMCA of Greater Pittsburgh for the purpose of purchasing meals for the operation of a nonprofit food service program for YMCA of Greater Pittsburgh Ramsey Elementary Program. Item 3, approval of the agreement with Ever-Driven Custom Transportation Solutions. Approve the agreement for the provision of alternate transportation solutions with Ever-Driven Custom Transportation Solution. Ever-Driven Custom Transportation Solutions specializes in transporting students with special needs. Item 4, approval of the purchase and installation of Evolve weapon detection systems from Convergent. Approve the purchase and installation of the Evolve weapon detection system for a cost of $105,324.12. Approve the purchase of 2 years customer service support program for a cost of $65,985.92, with the total cost of the Evolve weapon system being $171,310.04. Funds of $154,000, $103,000 coming from the school mental health and safety security grant. Item 5, approval of the installation and repair of the field garage roof at the Gateway High School Stadium per the attached proposals. Funds coming from the fund balance general fund for the 22-23 fiscal year. Remove existing shingles, replace the plywood, install synthetic felt, lifetime shingles, 2 vents, and aluminum fascia over the existing wood.
Thank you, sir. And by the way, let me be the one to point out the obvious heartbreaking circumstance of us debating $18,000 for our show and having to spend $170,000 on metal detectors to keep our community and our students safe.
That is
It's,
coming from a grant.
it is coming from a grant, money still spent, and money that came from us originally, so.
17,000.
Mr. Giles, I'm gonna put you on the spot because it wasn't in the agenda, but what is our current fund balance?
You mean in the general fund?
The reserve, what is our reserve that we're borrowing every time we go over budget? I call it our fund balance.
Well, right now, in our general fund balance, we're over $9 million after we paid, after unions approve these bills.
Okay, good, that's a good number.
It's almost exactly what's.
I was a little nervous when I didn't see it in the financial reports.
Oh, they'll be here next week, once we do all the bank reconciliations.
Just so the public knows, we're still in good shape, so $9 million.
Yeah.
All righty,
It's a good number.
That's all we have.
let's move on to comments from residents. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Resident, yeah, we already did that. Comments from residents on whatever they would like, non-ed or. Who does, has what?
I did, I
We
was.
just skipped right
I-
over that, Jack Bubba.
On what, she have a question on?
I just had a question on the metal detectors. At the high school, in the hallway by the auditorium and music department, there is a metal detector walk-through one that just sort of like it's just thrown in there. Are we using that? Does anybody know? Because I can't say that it's being pulled out because the way that it was like pushed in there.
Where is it?
Well, I was doing my backpack and I had to cut through the music department. It's a hallway that you go down to go out to the outside.
Is that the door that the kids come in from the student parking lot? Because they do use metal detectors there, and then you guys move them out of the way during class.
This looked like it was packed in. Didn't look like it was being moved every day. That's why I just wondered, if somebody could look into that to see, because, I mean, we need the metal detectors. I just want to make sure that we're using all the ones we have.
We can examine that. Okay.
I noticed it last night. Thank you.
All right, comments from residents. Who's up?
Rabbi Barbara, of course.
Barbara Simons, I am a resident. I'm sorry for blurting out before, I wasn't sure the timing of when we could comment.
Whenever you'd like, ma'am. Anyone in this audience, feel free to blurt.
I don't believe in that, but anyway, thank you. So I just want to speak very briefly, a request to what Mr. Ritter brought up, which is great, and obviously communication is so important, that one of the challenges I find as a leader within the community, but one whose kids have long since left Gateway very successfully, thank you to Gateway, I always say, is really spending some focal time and energy on how to be in touch with those of us who live in Monroeville and Pitcairn, but who no longer have children in the district. Because sometimes I find it difficult to find out what is happening or how to connect in and so forth. So if one aspect of your list that you're creating could be on that focus, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Just on the, so how do we do that now?
So let me give an illustration.
Yeah.
Thank you for bringing that up. So one of the other things that's been on not just my mind, but a lot of the other folks' minds here is, how can we get more people from Pitcairn, Monroeville to come in and do things with the kids here? So after they're vetted and they've got all the clearances and everything, let's say we've got some grandparents out there that would like to be able to read to the little kids. Little kids love to have a grandma, grandpa read.
And the monster went up the hill and he peeked around the tree, and guess what he saw? Guess what he saw?
So they know how to read like that to entertain the kids, and the teachers love that. Now, how do you find this grouping of retired people who would like to be able to come in? How do you send them a message? Leslie, can you come in Tuesday? No, I can come in Thursday. Okay, I'll switch it, and then we'll switch with someone else. So the superintendent can't, the principals can't do, the teachers can't do that. A communications director, if we toss that onto their list, communications, reaching out, getting the people in there so that you don't, have an empty spot in the classroom when someone's supposed to be reading and they're not there. So a communications director could reach out to people who don't have kids in the district anymore and say, listen, would you like to be involved? Here's 16 ways you could chip in. Pick one if you want, and if not now, maybe next year. But that's a nice communication thing that could be tossed out, right? Yes.
Should I go over there?
Sure, so we can hear it home, yeah.
From there?
Sure.
Okay, so that's lovely, right? And I volunteer fairly often in the school and try to be involved, but, and so it's not a but, and. I think that if there were an option for an opt-in, when I think of, I don't know what, some email that I keep getting and I want to unsubscribe, they then say, well, do you want all of them or some of them or just this one or whatever it might be, right? But I think that to have an opt-in list even, and that's minimal efficacy in that many people are not online, and I understand that problem also. But at least if people could opt in to say, yes, I want to receive the minutes of this last school board meeting. I want to receive, what curricular items are up for a 30-day review. How else do we know that? I understand we should be, if not present, then listening to it. But the point is that maybe something along those lines, at least those of us who do want to try to be able to be involved. One of the challenges right now is that there's a message to me in Monroeville is that somehow where our presence, our voices aren't fully wanted in that. Right now, if I understand correctly, the municipalities meeting has started at 7, right? So we could go now and walk in late, which seems a little rude, but there's no way to be in both places at the same time. So if we were at 1, but trying to also be following what the school board is speaking about and deciding, that would just be really helpful. So probably, I imagine most of the residents of Monroeville and Pitcairn do not have children currently at Gateway, right? So there are a lot of us. What?
I think the numbers would bear that out.
So therefore, the majority of us, right, are not necessarily having easy access. So I didn't want to make this too big. I just wanted to hope that it would get onto your list.
So you think a newsletter, simple, written in non-technical language will be helpful?
It could be, and again, if it might be too much to do the opt-in for, this part and not that part or whatever it might be, but yeah, if someone had interest in extracurriculars or theater, I can't imagine we have volunteer bus drivers, but with all that you've talked about, maybe they want to hear about that and offer their services, right, or whatever it might be, but some kind of email, e-news kind of thing, or some other way to help us be involved when we're really trying to be.
I wonder if we could get a weekly column in the local paper. We could take turns writing it. Little update.
Express, you mean?
But does the Monroeville have a newsletter? Like I know Wilkins Township does. They send out a quarterly newsletter.
We have one in Pitcairn, but I don't know if Monroeville does.
The high school sends out
Is there a way to advertise our YouTube more? Since we are on YouTube, is there any way to, I don't know, get the word out even more, advertise, marketing?
Or throw a flyer up at the senior center for reading. And
Let's not answer it right now. I'll put it on the list for marketing, operations, and intelligence and opt-in listings. In other words, that's a bucket, so we'll toss it on the list and see if we can find someone that could massage that bucket for us. That's
Well, I don't think it's that hard to get things into the Times Express, even that one section where it says what's going on or what's happening or something like that. We just have
easy
to.
access, everybody gets it already.
How about we just have to have dedicated people to.
How about if I reach out to Haley? I'll reach out to Haley.
Okay.
And then we'll
Just to
talk.
be clear, Pitcairn does not get the Times Express, by the way.
Sure. Is there something
They
to,
have what do they have, the Pitcairn Tatter? Or
They
something?
said they get a newsletter though, right?
We-
So we
yeah.
can incorporate.
We can, yes.
I live in Monroeville, we don't get it
I
either.
think Taylor's doing it, yes. Sorry, I heard a voice.
Submit the same letter to the Pitcairn.
Valerie was going to say something.
Well, I thought I just heard something.
That was me. I said, in the area of Monroeville where I live, we do not receive the Times Express either.
Really?
Yes.
What have you done to irritate them? I know what Pitcairn did. Ms. Warning.
So I'm just going to say, Monroeville has on their government channel, which we have the bars, the color bars, they have everything that's happening in the municipality. It's a continuous circulation. So, which brings up another,
Intergovernmental conversation.
well, not as much as intergovernment, another, I want to say supplemental, that if we could put out there, whether it's the video club or something that could address this, to take care of the TV, that, get this going, to get this, so we do have something that's up there. So when people turn on Channel 13, whatever it is, 44, I think, in Pitcairn, they can see what's happening at the district. Like when you turn on Channel 15 for Monroeville, you see what's happening.
So Monroeville already has the technical entity in place to televise their stuff.
Micah, are you on, please?
But we can't simply talk to Monroeville about, hey, that thing you're doing for Monroeville, let's do that for the school district.
Our Channel 13 franchise that we have,
Yes.
could you explain how that works?
Yeah, so for both Comcast and Verizon Fios, when they came into the municipality, they signed an agreement with Monroeville about how they're supposed to distribute cable to the public. Part of that agreement is they would provide a government access channel and an educational access channel for the community for information, just as Val was describing. So both Monroeville and the school district have their own dedicated channel with both providers. So we can each air whatever we want on it.
We just need someone
To govern it.
to put it together to do it, correct?
Yes.
All right, so that's understood. What I'm saying, Monroeville has that entity. They're doing it right now.
We have it too, it just needs, so we just need someone to record it and upload it and
Right, to do the thing.
Yeah,
We have the station on which to put it.
Yeah.
We don't have the people doing the technical part, but Monroeville has that. And obviously, they're active doing it, so.
Just to let everyone know that I had a meeting today with Dawn Nicolazzo, Matt Stockunas was present. We were in the Library Media Center up at the high school. And there's a fiction nook, an area that is wired appropriately, and I think Bob's familiar with that area, that we can, and we have envisioned an opportunity to make that into a modern, up-to-date television studio that we would be looking for board approval to do in the summer of '23. So when I say the infant stages of this, because there are remnants of the old television studio behind the LGI. However, that equipment and everything associated with it is so outdated that it needs complete refurbished. So there is ongoing conversations about this. When we're ready to present to the board and to the community about the needs of that program, including the curriculum, morning announcements, and the channel, we will do so with a group of educators.
Now, along those same lines, I just a week or two ago saw what the middle school does with their morning announcements.
Correct.
Just upstairs in our history room with what seemed like pretty impressive equipment.
Yes.
To essentially televise the thing they're doing, but just within the school.
We would want to ensure that those students, because they're
Minors. Say minors.
There are a lot of rules,
We're developing a habit here of finishing other people's
Yes.
sentences. So if you're gonna do that, get it
And I
right.
merely wanted
Goes to you
to
too, Ms. McBride. You did that.
acknowledge the fact that there is interest from our students, and they are very involved and, want to continue this opportunity going up to the high school. So we're thinking ahead to say, okay, if we develop something that would be conducive enough for our kids to continue to involve in it, the opportunity exists. So why not look at it? And I understand they're minors.
I'm just saying, whoever this communications director is, there's a lot of rules that they have to follow in order to make these
successful.
And by no means was I suggesting
No,
a minor to be in that position.
Yeah, the reason I bring that up is because I've been trying to interview a couple folks from outside, and they understand how difficult this role is, and they would need to be paid. That's why it can't really be a volunteer position. They have to have authority and responsibility with that authority, and a list of things that need to be done.
And the SEC rules, so all that's been in play previously when we were on TV, correct?
The Gateway used to have, was it, that they would meet and have like a TV production, and they would interview different people, and it was very nice. But there again, you need someone to run it.
Yeah, oversee it. Yeah,
Let's just hire somebody. Let's just do away with busing and
All
hire
right,
somebody for the studio.
we had one comment from the rabbi. Anyone else in the audience have a comment?
I'd like to say one thing.
Get up there and say it, ma'am.
Got to get those lines off the TV.
My name is Brunette Richards, and I'm a resident from Monroeville. I just want to piggyback on what Barbara was saying as far as the volunteers and trying to recruit volunteers to come into the school district, independent volunteers. I have been an independent volunteer since 2007, until the COVID. And one thing, I remember one year you had anybody who wanted to be a volunteer, the HR director had a meeting for everybody to come in, and they sat down and went through the whole session with them, going through the clearance procedure and everything, and filling out the forms. That is something that I think that if you, speaking of having like retirees, grandparents, both of my children are graduates from Gateway, some of you know them, and my grandson was a graduate from Gateway. And I think that would be a good process if you decide to, like in recruiting new independent volunteers, is to set up some kind of a program like that, that they be able to, you could be able to work with them and walk them through that procedure as far as the forms, the clearance and everything, because on your own, it could be kind of hectic from my own personal experience. So that's one thing I would say. Another thing I want to ask about the equity director. I understand we plan on having one.
Yes, the board has approved the contract of Dr. Anthony Kane. He will be in touch with my office very soon. He's transitioning jobs from Duquesne University to St. Vincent University, lives in the community. And once he sits down and develops the framework for what it is we're going to be assessing, the data, et cetera, he will then be able to present information to the public.
I have met Dr. Kane. I'm a Rotarian, so when he was at our International Peace Day, I met him then because he was our guest speaker. Very intelligent, bright young man. And I hope that the board will be willing to work with him. Yes, he's at St. Vincent, but for him to be willing, because when I spoke to him, he said he would like to get involved in the community. So as long as the board is initially asking him to get involved, work with him faithfully.
Absolutely.
Intelligently and honestly, because I'm going to be working with him too. So thank you.
Thank you.
Well, ma'am, I think it's the Trib Live, was that where it was? There was an interview with
There's an
Dr.
article, yeah.
Kane, and an article about him in the Trib, or the Trib Live. And just a bit of history, we went out and aggressively found Dr. Kane and recruited Dr. Kane. So I had no intention of going to that trouble and then not paying attention to what he has to say. I went and heard him speak, I met him, I brought him in, and by the way, just to be clear, we do have an equities department now. Our goal is to make it the best possible, and you're right, if we go to the trouble of finding him and hiring him and then ignoring him, then it's a hollow gesture at best, and that's nobody's plan here. But you'll keep an eye on us, yes?
Oh, yeah.
Very good.
If
Anyone
not, he
else?
will.
Yes, sir.
I'm gonna piggyback. No way to comment there. I'm JT Thomas. I'm a resident, as you know, of Monroeville. And I'd too like to just make some comments about the engagement of Dr. King. Now, Dr. King, from my own personal vetting, is more than qualified in addressing the achievement gaps, the disparities, and some of the inequities that currently exist in the Gateway community here, within our school district, I should say. Here's my concern about consultants in general and how Gateway has actually used consultants. When you consult on a matter, typically you discuss and evaluate what you're doing, basically who is doing it and how it's done. And consultation has been the process that historically employed here in addressing these issues. I'm not sure we ever addressed the why. You know, we have achievement gap here, we have the diversity, equity, inclusion concerns here, but why do they exist? A lot of times we talk about they exist, and we got a process of kicking the can down the road here. Now, consultation does have its place, but what I think is needed, is my perspective, is transformation here. And transformation requires a renewing of the mind. Yeah, we brought in Dr. King, and obviously I think that's a great idea. I think it's very positive. But I think we have to renew our mind and our thinking in terms of how we approach this diversity, because this gap has been here for a long time, and we need to close this gap. One of my concerns here is the investment in this gap. $4,000 to close this gap, I mean, is that a serious investment?
That's not a fair comparison.
Fair?
I don't think that's a fair comparison.
I'm not comparing anything. I'm just saying, looking at the gap and how long the gap has existed, it's this $4,000.
I think 50-plus years, but what I was going to get at was, you can't just look at the salary of one person for the investment in the achievement gap, because you're taking for granted all of the other avenues the district is pursuing to help students.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm not discounting that. I'm looking at the value here, and I'm sure he adds value, but $4,000, you know, I mean, the return on investment is what? Because
Mr. Thomas, I've had this sort of complaint almost raised before that we got Dr. Kane way too cheaply. And I mean, that's essentially what we're saying. If we had paid Dr. Kane $30,000, and Dr. Kane is not going to become our equity department necessarily. What Dr. Kane is going to do is very quickly take a look at what we've done to this point, tell us ultimately, ideally, what we've done wrong and why and how, and who we need to do it better. And that person, I expect, is going to cost a lot more than $4,000.
Okay.
So at this moment, and in agreement with Dr. Kane, and based on his consulting work, I think with Lycoming College, that's kind of where this number came from. But and again, other people have said that, like, this is all you care about this. I'm sure would have scrounged up a lot more money if that's what it took to get the best person to resume the conversation about equities, because it had stagnated. And that's why I went and found Dr. Kane in the first place.
Okay, well, I think my concern is that we view this disparity, these inequities or atrocities, you know, as inhumane. I look at them as very inhumane, personally. I take it very seriously because I understand the consequences of this type of environment, and maybe you probably don't have the appreciation that I do for it, so I'm gonna look at it a little different from the way you look at it. One thing that I'm concerned here is that transformation, you know, when I say it requires a repentance, and use that a God-fearing in here, I think you should look at this as very sinful. I should get an amen from somebody, but that's okay. But it is. When you look at this diversity, equity, inclusion that has transpired here over the years and decades, it requires a repentance, which means turning around, going the opposite direction. And that's my concern. My concern is that it's great to bring him in here. I think he's great. He's more than qualified. But it's more than consultation that is needed. It's mentoring. The board needs to be mentored. I think the administration, teachers need to be mentored in this process. And with our students, I think that should happen with them. In order to transform them, I think we have to more or less kind of activate what I want to call their prior knowledge. And sometimes that is excluded, within the curriculum. I think also we should encourage them to actually leverage their cultural capital, and that shouldn't be a threat. Another thing is, finally, I think we should allow students to actually critique, applaud, and embrace each other's culture. And that's what it's like. I do a lot of mentoring with young men, college team players, so I'm very cognizant of the environment and the facade that goes with it. And I'm going to share one story with them to sit down. A year ago, I went to my alma mater to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the first Fiesta Bowl. And it was a very alarming experience to meet guys some I hadn't seen in 40 years for the most part. And over that weekend, on that team was only 4 African Americans on the football team. Imagine that, 4 African Americans. But that weekend there, it was very strange for us four because there was more hugging and kissing and handshaking and repetitive conversations. And after one of the first night, we felt that we were priests in a confession booth. I mean, in terms of the conversation that was happening there. And then we couldn't figure out what was going on. But that was the first time that we felt team camaraderie, 50 years later. We went in there, transformed that student as the first African-American, and at the first time I felt as if I was a team player in all of that. And who summed it up with some of my white teammates. One gentleman was just retired as a pediatrician. He indicated he had delivered 5,000 babies, just retired. And he say, you know what, guys? He say, our parents raised us wrong. And it was so quiet, you hear a cockroach pissing. Excuse my southern analogy, but I go there sometime. And basically, he said, our parents raised us wrong. Now, these guys, obviously 50 years later, realizing that, but who captured the audience was one of my teammates from my home state, a guy named Red Dawson. He said, if we would have gotten to know them better, speaking of us 4 blacks athletes, he say, we would have been better. And I think that's what has to happen here in this diversity, equity, inclusion process here. And I agree. Dr. King, he can actually get you guys where you need to be, but are you willing to be transformed? And that's my concern. I'm sure you didn't waste time and you did all your due diligence in bringing them in here, but is there a willingness to be transformed and follow him? And that's my concern. Not so much the investment, but your investment in him and taking his lead and allowing him, because he will consult you or mentor you based on your reaction to him. And that's what I want to see, your reaction to him. Because I know what he can do. It does concern me. It's what you allow him to do. And that's going to be a transformation for everybody in here, teachers, the school district do so. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else in the audience?
Mr. Thomas, you have some great ideas about it, with the students embracing their culture and some of the things like that. Are you able to help with that and help us try to figure out a way to do that and volunteer some time to come in and meet with the students to do that?
Sure, that's what I do.
Okay.
That's why I have no scratches on me. I know how to communicate.
Achievement and your leadership.
Love to, yeah. I speak to a lot of young people, college students, men's group, people that are sincere about, the concerns in our country, with diversity and equity. The ones that aren't, they don't like it back.
Jack, I just want to say one thing. You had made a comment that we brought in Dr. Kane so he can tell us what we've done wrong. I think we're bringing,
By the way, there were a number of other things I said. That was part of it, yes.
correct. I just want to say, I think our reason, I don't think we've done anything wrong. I think we're bringing him in to see what he can do to make it better. Because I think Dr. Shaky has done a phenomenal job. It's just that we've tried to, we want to go out further, do a little bit more.
Sure.
Thank you.
Mr. Thomas, your comments are very well taken. Thank you. Yes, it will come down to implementation. And recommendations will come, and it will come down again to implementation and see how it goes.
And I'd like to say one thing, not that things are wrong, the sales didn't do anything wrong last week. They just didn't execute. And that's the difference. So it's not a criticism here. You don't know what you don't know.
That's what I meant.
Things can be very expensive. I've learned that the hard way, it can be so. So basically, I think Dr. King bring maybe an insight or a paradigm shift that maybe they're comfortable with. One that you're not aware of, that looks foreign, and nobody's changed. And I'll leave one, we don't like challenges as human beings. And I was talking to my daughter years ago, why we don't like challenges. She sent me the word challenge. And she said, Dad, look at it. What do you see? Well, I get very philosophical. I got a lot of football crap going on, She said, you're too deep, Dad. She said, look at the bookends of the word. And I still didn't get it. She said, take the LLE and put it in parentheses. And the book in the word of our word is change. That's why we don't like challenge, because we have to change. And that's the key to moving forward. That will be the key to transforming the diversity equity paradigm in Gateway, is this challenge that you bring, it involves change. So the question, if you want to change, you don't want to change. If it doesn't fix, if it's not broke, don't fix it. The stagecoach wasn't broken, and they got a car just to be efficient.
All right, we're going to move on to the superintendent's report.
Real quick, want to acknowledge the work of everyone involved in the homecoming ceremonies this past weekend. From the pep rally to the carnival, to the game itself and the homecoming dance. A very successful weekend. The Gators came on top, defeated Penn Trafford, received the bell again. And it was an exciting weekend. So I know there's a lot of individuals who work behind the scenes to make sure that our kids receive and have those experiences. And it's nice that, again, coming out of COVID, that we're able to do those things, and just want to acknowledge everyone for their participation. Also, would like to add that about a week and a half ago, I went on the news, there was a report of a student who had received and taken a pill that was thought to be a mint at Mosside Middle School. We're nearing the end of our investigation. At this point, we do not have enough information to validate that one of our children did in fact provide the mint to the individual. Again, we're not saying that this child fabricated the information, just the names that were provided to us. Video evidence did not prove that that was the case. So again, we're continuing to talk to individuals and students, but wanted to pass that along to our viewing public. That's all I have.
Thank you, sir. Well, we've had lots of chat from board members, but now is the time for board committee reports for anyone who would like to do that. Do I have any board members who would like to do a committee report?
Nope.
I don't have a committee report, but I did take my son to the carnival when he made slime and ate and had a pop, and it was
kinds of fun,
yeah, very nice, and he enjoyed it.
Thank you.
I do have to say, I went to the homecoming dance, I wish Miss Payne was back to teach these kids how to dance.
Oh, the ballroom dancing.
I was a little taken back. Maybe it's my age, but they did have a good time. Ms. Dudak and Ms. Hurry, thank you very much. You really went out of your way. The kids had a really good time and appreciate that. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Morning.
I also want to add on to this being a very successful Gateway weekend from the carnival, where I bought this shirt that
Beautiful.
this is the month of actually awareness in terms of breast cancer, so I was glad I was able to get a pink shirt, and I think it's, what does it say on there?
Says never give up.
Never give up. Okay, Gator Nation. So I thought that was really great. The homecoming program, the court, the young ladies, and the game that we successfully won after having lost to them for 3 years, I believe, the last 3 years. So that was all great. The fact that you began the superintendent's roundtable, I thought that was good. I just hope going forward, we can get more parents to come out to that. Jen Hoffner was very informative as well, and I want to commend her for that. But we do need to see more parents because they requested it, and so you started it, so we need them there. And then an interesting Black History tip, and some of you may even be aware of, Granville T. Woods patents the telephone systems and apparatus. And we're talking back in 1887. And he was actually considered the Black Edison. And the other thing that was interesting, Woods won twice in court defending his inventions from claims by Thomas Edison. So just keep that in mind for little Black history.
Thank you, ma'am. Nothing?
I don't have anything. I second the homecoming festivities.
I just want to compliment the TV crew here, and the reception of the game on the TV was great. It was just as good as Fox. So,
Great job.
so yeah, it came out very, very well on I have Verizon, and it was on 510, and it was very well done.
That's why you weren't there. You were at home watching it.
You missed all the pizza.
For some reason, I couldn't come there, so there was there. So, circular argument.
Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Singh.
I should have said thank you, Foxes, for 70
Mr. Ritter?
pizzas.
We're good. We're good. I am also good, except did want to point out, Thomas Edison was known as the White Wood. Did you know that? Just saying. It's a true thing. I like that. Do I hear a motion to?
Before you do, I would just like to request a Building and Grounds meeting next week.
I will get a date on it.
Motion
Thank
to
you.
adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, second, made second, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, thank you.